Hi, I'm Charles with AniCap. Previously a boy named Wang was born with unimaginable power and decided to hide his power forever. His parents then give him an amulet and a pill to suppress his power. Wang would then save Sunro from another attempt to take her to the demon world. However, later he would learn that her family has accrued large amounts of debt and are going bankrupt. The story continues as Sunro's father makes calls to other wealthy families in the hopes of receiving some spiritual energy to save his company. Sunro grows more and more concerned as her father is rejected several times and receives a notice that liquidation of his home will be carried out the next day. Days later, our group go to visit Sunro after she has moved back to Mount Flowerfruit. She comes to greet them and they are shocked to see that her family has gone back to living in the Stone Age. Her family has mortgaged everything and the ancestral property is all that is left. Sunro explains that her family's company is a pharmaceutical one and it focuses on making magic pills. However, the drop in overall spiritual force value of the earth has caused poor harvest of the herbs required to make pills. Her family is optimistic though, explaining that they can grow herbs on their own there and will build the company back up with hard work. Elsewhere, the Tang family gloats about Sunro's family's misfortune. Their guest, Uncle Richmond, explains that the spiritual vein of the Mount Flowerfruit is still there and they must do what it takes to eliminate the Sunro family once and for all. Sunro would then show Wang how a once plentiful waterfall has now become a small stream of water. She explains that once the pool below dries out, then the spiritual vein of the Mount Flowerfruit will be cut off too. Wang offers his help, but Sunro points out how her family is determined to do it for themselves. The group would later praise Sunro's family's resilience, but hear on the news that their entire company is being taken over by the Tang family. The ceremony will be held the next day at the Flowerfruit Mountain, and the two families will be signing a bloodborne agreement there. Sunro can't be reached, and Wang points out how someone from Tang's family had arrived to the mountain just as they left. They determine that Tang's family must be forcing Sunro's into the agreement and decide to be there at the ceremony. Tang's father explains his plans to harvest a new herb on his new land, and Sunro's father points out how it will exhaust the aura of the spiritual vein much faster. Bei is nearby and is able to detect our group coming. Liang is there to greet them, vowing to take revenge for what happened at the competition, and a battle ensues. At the ceremony, it is announced that Sunro and Tang will be signing the Bloodborne Pact for their respective families. The group's battle is intense as everyone's powers are on full display, and Bei is surprised by Lin. However, mid-battle, Tang's group notices that Wang is missing, and we see that the plan was always to have him go straight to the ceremony. Tang puts his blood on the contract and taunts Sunro as she is next. Just as she is about to put her blood, Wang arrives to take her away. He assures her that everything will be alright and they head outside. The group celebrate their success, but Sunro's father reminds her of her duties to the family. Sunro explains that they made the decision of their own free will, and we then see how it came to be. Tang's father had offered to purchase the company and Sunro was completely against it. However, her parents wanted to hear the offer as rebuilding the business could take hundreds of years and the magic mountain is drying up. Sunro couldn't believe what she was hearing, but her parents explained that they must also think of the lives of all their employees. Sunro has decided to honor her obligation and heads back to the ceremony. Tang gloats about being from a wealthy family and explains that being wealthy means he and his family can do whatever they please. Sunro is clearly unhappy though, and Wang comes up with an idea. He reaches into the pool of water to pull out an ancient demon that sucks the earth's spiritual vein. Chen determines that must be the cause of the exhaustion, and Mr. Richmond watches but explains that it's too late. The spiritual vein has been sucked completely dry, but Mr. Richmond is shocked to see that it's beginning to flow back. It's Wang and his friends that are the cause as they tug on the demon. They eventually pull it out of the water, and once again the two families prepare to sign the contract. The destruction of the demon nearby shocks everyone, and large amounts of water shoots out, making it seem like the waterfall is flowing backwards. The stock market then moves in the favor of Sunro's family. Yi arrives to explain that they are aware of the Tang family's cooperation with the demon and will have their assets frozen. The magic mountain will soon return to normal, and Wang watches Sunro. Days later, students attend the Songhai Spiritual Sword Art Assembly. Students from all the factions have been invited to exhibit their unique sword skills. The 5 swordsmanship masters that will serve as judges are then introduced. Ms. Z of Faction 59 and Master Yi, captain of the Star Squad, are among them. The last two are the famous sword dancing twins Yuan and Hanzer. First prize wins tickets for a ride to Fort Skyloop, and Sunro is announced as the first participant. Ms. Z points out how several of Sunro's swords were damaged at last year's competition, and she even sacrificed her own sword spirit. Sunro explains that she is there to learn and improve her sword skills by receiving critique from the judges. With her speech over, Sunro states that she will be demonstrating her family's ancestral sword skill, Ocean Dance. The judges are amazed to see how Sunro is able to control over a dozen swords with such grace, and even Miss D acknowledges it. Someone with ill intentions is watching as well though, and Sunro is confused when her swords stop responding to her. Seconds later, the swords come crashing down, and Professor Zukong must descend from the stands to rescue Miss Z. Yi points out how dangerous it is to attempt controlling so many swords, and asks Sunro to only do what she can actually handle. The audience relentlessly mocks Sunro for her performance, and she explains to her friends that it's more difficult without her sword spirit. Viewership of the assembly skyrockets after Sunro's failed attempt at the dangerous skill, and causes the spiritual energy index to increase dramatically. Richmond notices as well and points out how foolish mankind is. The comments about Sunro's performance become even worse just as Cheng and Hago begin their turn. They explain that they aren't there to challenge themselves or anything and are really just there to put on a good show. They go on to say that their friend has been going through a lot recently and they only want to help make her feel better. Chen reveals that his performance will be an attempt at catching a blade with his bare hand. Mizzy points out how unimpressive that is, but Chen states he will do it while blindfolded. He then brings out his sword spirit arms and is mocked by Mizzy for not being able to summon the complete spirit. The trick begins and we see that Mr. Richmond sabotages this one as well. Hago's quick thinking allows him to tell everyone that this was actually a demonstration of Chen's iron head, and the two quickly leave the stage. Another failed attempt means viewership has gone up dramatically once again, and the spiritual energy index has broken the platform record. Mr. Richmond explains he only needs a bit more energy, as we see that it's Babe from Faction 59's turn. She instantly amazes everyone with her ability to control thousands of swords, and Mizzy explains that this way is better than the traditional technique Sunro uses. Chen assures Sunro that he will be okay, and she wonders where Wang has gone. On stage, the final contestant is Lin, and Sunro notices how pretty she is without her glasses. Lin's presentation is the most graceful of them all, and she quickly earns the praise of the crowd. Lin finishes up her amazing display, and viewership goes higher than it has ever been in human history. Mr. Richmond continues to watch and reveals that his plan is ready. Lin is struggling to stop the fire she created, and her friends notice it immediately. The situation becomes worse, and Sunro springs into action. Her spirit sword is reborn under the extreme conditions, and Sunro stops the fire. The two girls then do what they can to salvage the presentation, and the crowd is amazed at the results. The judges are impressed too, and Miss Z is stunned to see that Sunro has revived her spirit sword. Zukong points out that is why she is a once-in-a-thousand genius, and everyone applauds as the assembly nears its end. The spiritual energy index reaches 1 billion, and Mr. Richmond arrives to reveal that he has collected it all in order to power his magic. He activates his spell, and we watch as it overtakes humans all over the world. Mr. Richmond calls it his world-class ultimate control, and claims that now all human beings are puppets under his control. However, Mr. Richmond is shocked to see that the girls standing right next to him aren't under his control, and Wang explains it's because his magic formation has lost its effect. Wang had moved the spell's formation before its activation. This way Sunro is actually the one in control of everyone instead of Mr. Richmond. Mr. Richmond is ready to escalate the fight, but the television host decides that enough is enough. There is a problem though, the audience begins to behave like zombies, and Sunro can't deactivate the spell. Elsewhere, we find that Lu Yin is in a new cage and makes a weak attempt at escaping. The guards explain that there are several of them now. She vows to end them all one day, and the guard begins to taunt her. Mr. Richmond's spell reaches them though, and Lu Yin recognizes the ultimate control spell. In the city, Sunro points out how the self-moving dummies don't look very smart, and Wang points out that they are being controlled. The trio attempt to get somewhere safe when they encounter a group of the controlled and must start running. Jinkei points out that Wang can just use his 100% trick of forgetting to cure them all, but Wang states that it will leave everyone with brain damage. Wang uses his spirit sword to help them all escape quickly, but Jinkei points out that he is not a flying sword. They find a safe spot to discuss their plan, and Lin determines they must first find a way to break the curse. They are running out of time though, as the controlled people are forming a human ladder. Jinkei explains that he can destroy them all, but Wang silences him, and they all recognize Chen among the crowd. Chen is being controlled just like the rest, and uses speed that he has never shown before. He quickly ascends the building and expresses his true feelings for Sunro, only to be rejected. The spell on Chen is broken, and Lin believes that landing on his head is what did it. She recommends hitting him on the head more to make sure, but Wang points out that it was the pain of being rejected that released the ultimate control. Sunro expresses her dislike for the rest of the crowd and cures them as well. People are infected throughout the world though, and Lin explains that Sunro's livestream can help with that problem. However, Luyin is nearby and makes a dramatic speech about how she will not free the cellular tower unless Sunro surrenders herself. The group can't hear her though, and Luyin can't hear them either when they attempt to warn her about a falling meteor. Wang stares into the distance and sees who is responsible. It's Mr. Richmond, and he is disappointed to see that he has missed again with his attack. With the cell tower now destroyed and none nearby, their plans for the livestream are ruined. However, Wang points out that the space station will be able to broadcast to the entire world easily, and shows that they can get there with the 2 passes he took from the assembly. The entire group once again flies on Wang's sword, and Jinkei points out how much of a burden it is. Wang promises them a couple of bags of crispy noodles though, and they go into hyperspeed. They don't get very far though, and the dummies are closing in fast. Chen and Lin both decide to stay as there are only 2 tickets, and Chen assures them that the thousands of dummies will not be enough to stop him. Wang decides that they must hurry and takes Sunro to the train that's headed to the space station. While alone, Wang reveals that there is something that he has been waiting to tell Sunro. It's important, so he wants her to brace herself, and so she does. Wang then points out how odd it was that no one checked their tickets before boarding the train. Chen and Lin are glad to see that their friends are nearing the space station and explain how surprising it was that the dummies just ignored them in an attempt to get to Sunro. On the space station, Sunro begins her stream and explains how she grew up wanting everyone's love. Thanks to a spell, she currently does have the world's love, but she finally realizes that she doesn't actually need it. Sunro then apologizes to the world and reveals that she only needs the love of one man. Humanity cries after her stream ends, and Sunro points out how she just turned on the whole world. Their friends celebrate but are shocked to see that a gigantic rock is crashing towards the planet and threatening the mass extinction of humanity. On the rock, Mr. Richmond has decided to sacrifice his life so that he can finally hit his target, but Wang tells Sunro that there is nothing to worry about. Wang launches his spirit sword at the meteor and destroys it along with Mr. Richmond. The rock fragments make a beautiful display in the sky, and Wang shares his crispy noodles with someone for the very first time. Thanks for watching part 8, 10,000 likes and I'll make a part 9.